Yeah, Coach, I guess just from when you guys started spring to now, 3 weeks in, I guess just where do you kind of assess offensively and defensively where you've seen the most improvement, where you've seen, just kind of where you guys are, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the question I go over all day, thinking about. And, you guys were there Saturday, most of you, I assume. And whenever you're analyzing your team, you're playing against each other. So one side's bad, it's usually the other side's good. But, that was discouraging in the moment Saturday, offensively. The way that we played, the lack of explosive plays, the lack of plays made in competitive situations. So that's discouraging, not where I would expect to be. But I also have extremely high expectations. Nobody has higher expectations for us as a program than myself. Charlie reminds me that, when we made a decision to sign Sam, that this was going to be part of it, that you weren't going to feel as good in the spring because he wasn't going to be available, so you don't have your quarterback, you don't have arguably your top receiver out there. And so, but it's a lot of work to do there. It doesn't happen overnight. If I told him, you can't think just because you sign the number one portal class and you come in here that, you're going to national championship. And it didn't work that way, and studied time, it didn't work that way. It didn't work that way last year with the number one class. So when I say there's a lot of work to do, that's not talking about years, that's not buying time, it's none of that. It's just saying there's a lot of work to do when you come into a program and you've got to change a lot of things when you take over, and not just offensively, but the whole culture of a program takes some time. And as you get guys, it's the middle of spring. We don't play a game, luckily, today. But on the other side of things, I would say our defense, is doing a great job. And some of those pieces had returned in the system, coaches' familiarity with each other, and the additions, that showed up Saturday. You see two elite edge rushers that just got here, an elite linebacker and an elite safety. Those are critical playmakers that made a lot of plays Saturday, and gave the offense a lot of problems.
Coach, over here, can you talk a little bit about the development of the O-line, if you feel like that's coming along, and cross-training guys like Stray and 70, talk about the development, and if you're happy with where the offensive line is right now?
Yeah, I think that offensively position has probably developed the best, through a couple weeks, and has played well together, and in my opinion is dramatically improved from when we got here. And so that's probably been the one bright spot, as you re-looked at the film. Now again, I got to be, like I said, I have really high standards and expectations, and we're not tackling, so that obviously creates more yards because there's missed tackles within a game, and you feel a little better. But I think the offensive line is coming along really well.
Coach, Longstreet made a really nice layered throw, I think, toward the end of practice. What has he done well, and what does he still need to improve on, especially to sort of lock up that number 2 spot?
Yeah, he had a really poor decision Saturday and one today, but he has played today and Saturday for a long portion of time within the scrimmage and the practice really well, and is playing his best by far from the practices since we've been here. So that's been obviously really good to see, and he's made a lot of plays in competitive situations that are off rhythm plays, which is to me a huge part of the quarterback, because the plays don't always go the way they're designed to go. And can the guy move around and make people miss and make off rhythm plays? Obviously, it's one thing we get all the credit for in coaching, but it's really the player. And can they make those plays in those critical situations is huge at that position.
Lane, talk to me about your tight end room. Do you have the numbers you want, the style of player that you want there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, headlined by Tradez, he's been phenomenal. We've had to pull him back a little bit just from a mileage standpoint, because he does work so hard and runs so much in the course of practice. And he is that mindset that continue to run across, as I've talked about in Louisiana, with players, with recruits. You say, how are things going since you got here? And we think offensive and defensively. I also think recruiting-wise, and it has gone extremely well, and really have enjoyed the Louisiana players and the mindset of them, whether it's the current team or the ones that come in and meet. And he's a great example of that. And we're developing after that some guys in a room, and I think that I don't think you're going to have the depth of rooms that you used to have, because you're not going to sign premier guys at a spot every year and keep them. It's just the system until if it's ever changed, that's how it's going to be. If that makes sense to you, what I'm saying is, you used to always kind of recruit number one tight ends or running backs, and you just got one every year. And now it's like, well, you have one, and then it's more, a lot of times you go in the portal, like free agency, and you're getting a second or a third. That never happened if you think about how college football was done.
Lane right here. Dilin Jones, just how much is he pushing those supposed two guys in front of him on the depth chart at the running back spot? Seems to be very active in both the run and the pass game for you guys.
Yeah, it's a good observation. He looks really good, has come in and been good in protection, been good in his vision, his feet, running the ball, and has been really a bright spot. Like I said, we're offensively, we've struggled to find those. And obviously, again, the tackling part, is a difference in that position specifically. But for a guy that wasn't a headliner, he's played like it. And that's really critical, because that spot is extremely critical to have somebody or a number of people that, again, just like the quarterback spot, makes the plays when everybody's not blocked up and makes the significant plays. And he's done that in the situations we've been in.
Coach over here. The second, I know you talked about Saturday and offensively and some struggles, but the secondary continues to make a lot of plays. They have a lot of length. I guess, have you ever seen a secondary have a 6'5" corner and then have a guy at 6'3" at safety and another guy at 6'3" at safety? It just seems like they cover so much ground in that as well. Can you speak on that just entire unit?
Yeah, they're really, really long and really effective, and they have really good ball skills. So what happens is, I always joke, sometimes guys will lead the team or the conference in pass breakups. That just means they have bad hands, because they're dropping the ball, dropping interceptions. These guys have really good ball skills. Really, if you think about all five of them, if you count Deshaun and Nichols, so there's really five. And they have really good ball skills, and because of their length, and then they make the plays on the ball. That's why you see high interception numbers. So that's been awesome. Obviously, that's great to have. Because I remember Colin Coward used to talk about length in basketball all the time, and the transition into football. There's a lot of things to your length in defensive play in football and in college football, because you have so many perimeter plays with the hash marks that guys got to take on and play. And that's part of the struggles offensively, is because these guys are so good at taking those plays away. It's a really exciting group that way.
Hey, Lane, can you confirm Aiden Anding's injury and what the cornerback room looks like without him?
Yeah, difficult injury, Achilles, and out for the season. And he was playing great. He was actually one of the two players of the game defensively Saturday. So really unfortunate for him. It's a second season-ending injury, and that's a big thing in this sport, different than other sports. Injuries are real in this sport, and a lot of times as you look back to your really good seasons, you got to have some breaks that way and avoid those. So I've looked at everything in that, even limiting practice, and we don't even tackle at all. So, but both injuries had nothing to do with scrimmage type of plays, contact plays. They both are just freak injuries, which a lot of times that is where they come from in football. It's not from the actual tackling. Concern, but again, back to like where are you? In my concerns, you don't have a spring portal. So people talk about coming in a program and change. Well, you get used to the players that you have. You see things, and you go to the spring and the second window. Well, that's for the first year gone, and that does certainly, I mean, that just is what it is. That makes it more challenging in your first year, flipping a roster. And that's a good example. You get an injury like that, well, you don't have a portal to go change. You can't put them in IR and pick someone up off of waivers like in the NFL. So that's a concern, but one we just got to deal with.
Coach, can you talk about the emergency of senior Bo Bordelon? What have y'all seen in him, and is it, in his case, is it a matter of a new offensive line coach that sees something that, or just what do y'all like about him? What have y'all seen so far?
He's just done a really good job. We moved him into guard and had a competition going there, and as of Saturday, won it, even though obviously we're not playing a game. But we don't just make a depth chart and you stay there. I think a lot of people do that. If you get outplayed, we move the depth chart, daily. And he's been doing a great job and deserved the right to go in there and start, and did a good job and can play tackle and guard. And I think coaching, that has nothing to do with whoever the coaches were before. Nothing to do with that. Coaching always, sometimes fresh starts are good for players, and guys come in and see different things or a different system. And our line coaches have been really excited about him from day one working. James Cregg had a background with him back from when he was in high school, and so he's done a good job.
Coach, with Zach Weeks and Deuce Geralds, what makes them fit to run some short yardage situations on offense?
Yeah, that would be the issue with having you guys at practice right there. I wasn't ready for that. No, we just look at a lot of different things, and it's that time of year to do that and look at people in different roles. We put defensive people on offense in blocking situations to see, and we just always, we run a program that's about creating a new box, not just thinking outside of it. So a couple years ago, we had a 310-pound tailback, in J.J. Pegues, and I don't think people would have thought of. So we just try to look at everything.
Coach, your defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, they seem to look more like the LSU defensive linemen of the past when they were successful in defense. What are you seeing out of that group?
That's a work in progress. With some portal guys there, and then young guys, obviously with the two true freshmen in there. And Deuce has really been extremely productive and caused havoc. And so he's run a lot with the ones, and he's going to be a great player. So excited to have some competition going on there.
Yeah, just also kind of to follow up, just are there any leaders that are maybe asserting themselves here in the first several weeks of camp? Any guys that you've noticed taking extra time to talk to players, or just really become vocal, I guess, with this group early in the offseason?
Yeah, I see some of that. I'm not worried about that. That's our job to do. We get paid a lot of money as coaches, and I think too often coaches are like, well, the players got to go lead. No, well, what are you doing? That's our job to lead and teach them what to do. And then eventually, as we teach them, then there's certain things they take over and do. But that's our job now, and I don't look to guys for that, whether that's Witt or TJ coming in, any of these guys. Like, you go play really well and get really, really good at doing your job as a player, and then we'll worry about that later on.
Just a couple here if I can. Just working with Nick, his ability to see a talent in a guy maybe out of position, is that something that you realize? Is that one of the things that you like about thinking outside of the box and maybe utilizing those guys in different spots?
Maybe a little bit. I think more from him comes, I find myself now like the obsession of winning, the obsession of every day of like, there's got to be something that we can do better. And I find myself like that, and I think maybe now our coaches get a little annoyed with me, maybe like I did him. And it's like where you're kind of never pleased. I find myself like that. So that really what I feel taking from him is more than that, really the different position. But in that, you look at everything. Could this guy play somewhere else? Could he do something else? Like there's got to be a way to play better than we did yesterday and to practice better than we did yesterday each day. And that's why I'm here all the time, trying to figure out some way of something we can do better.
And then just back to the tight ends, because you can't keep them and grow them, do you go looking for skill sets that you can kind of plug and play?
Yeah, I think, kind of giving away philosophy on this. I challenge our guys to make sure we evaluate who they are really, really well. Who is the player as they're coming out of high school? Because what is their mindset? How competitive are they? Because what's going to happen is most likely it's not going to go like they want in the first year. And then get into your analytics of, okay, well, if they're going to, or you're going to pay them, and then they're going to leave after year one, then what did you really get out of them from a business sense versus the money going somewhere else? So I really tried to find that in tight ends, but in all of our players, okay, who really are they in nowadays setup that it is, so that they are competitive enough that this is a place they want to be at, and not come into a place for a check because then all of a sudden it doesn't go well, they'll get another check somewhere else. And are they going to stay through some adversity, which is what they need to play through too as a good player. So that obviously character was always part of the evaluation, but I've moved it a lot higher now because of the ability to leave, where before you got the 17-year-old, well, he was really stuck with you for 4 years. So he had to eventually buy Henry, which was never going to play. Now they really don't have to. They just go somewhere else.
Coach, with Landon Clark, obviously he's making a huge leap up to this level of competition. What are some of the challenges in sort of getting him up to the literal speed of the game, and how long do you think it's going to take for him to sort of get used to this?
Yeah, I think that showed Saturday. It just is what it is. I don't care what sports you play, even if it's recreational sports you guys play. Like when you go play against really good people, all of a sudden it's harder and the windows are smaller, and you underthrow a little bit, it gets picked off here. So when you move up like he has, there is some challenges right away just to getting used to that and understand I can't get away with those habits that I had before in playing a position.
Coach, first time we had a chance to really get a look at special teams. Can you talk about if you're happy where they're at there? And LSU with a tradition of 7-18, is that going to continue on going into this year?
Yeah, of course. On the tradition, special teams, it's too hard to tell right now because we're still in so much drill work of things, where we're at. But I do think we'll be really good because our specialists are good, but also because we have really good, like we said, defensive length, and that transitions into special teams. And you have a lot of really good back seven players. That's who plays a lot on our special teams. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a good week.